Yeah.
Where in Jersey you from?
Huh?
Where in Jersey you from?
Northwest Jersey, like in the Delaware border gap.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I'm from. That's why they call it the Garden State. It's nice.
Close that down. Talk about some feedback. All right. Scott, you should be able to share your screen. See if that works for you.
Okay.
Blueberry.
Yes. Farmland.
Okay, this one.
Well, Dalefort's not there to see. And they found. I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's not there. So you got that. That's one. You know, the national.
Yeah.
All right. I do see your
You've been the Noble Bar.
your screen. All right, give me just a second. Let's see if I can do a fancy send over.
I like it when I go, but they I'm not much for bar band, but I really like it. It's well for professionals there. You know, strike up.
Full
I love
code. Basically have a bunch of binoculars.
You're kind of cutting in and out a little bit. So I don't know if it's connection on mine, yours. Just a second.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't.
Oh, there's.
Like 3 miles.
It said something like my connection's on our Starlink.
Oh, gotcha. Well, I know your audio is cutting in and out a little bit.
Okay. Audio to a different one then. Let's see.
Trying to find my button. Just looking for something real quick.
Change my audio to a different selection.
I can hear you now without anything cutting in and out. So I think we may try that one. I was looking for a certain thing. All right, so I'm gonna send this over real quick.
See a blind.
14 magnitude, so it's not.
All right. Chuck, can you see the screen?
Yeah,
And
I got binoculars, observing with binoculars.
perfect. All right. Good deal. Scott, are you ready to go?
Yeah, I should be.
All right. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. All right, everybody. Thank you for coming today to our monthly member meeting for Bernard Seaford Astronomical Society. We got about 20 people here. Looks like 10 online, so about 30 people in total. We have our guest speaker tonight is Scott Harrington. Scott, where are you joining us from tonight?
The next state over, Arkansas.
Okay, we won't hold it against you, but welcome. So Scott's going to give us about binoculars. He has posted an ebook that's available online, and he's really gotten into observing with binoculars. And after it's all said and done, I've got a few binoculars up here we can look at, and I'm sure he's going to have some recommendations as he goes through. With that, Scott, I'll give the floor to you, and it's all yours.
Okay. And at any time, if you need to interrupt or something, that's fine.
Sounds good.
Your picture, Tom, kind of freezes up occasionally for me, where the others don't. I
Yours
don't.
is freezing up right now as well.
Yeah, and see, it says something like my internet connection. I can't. I mean, I don't know.
You live in Arkansas.
Hopefully, the audio, as long as the audio comes, that's probably what's most important.
Yeah, I mean, if you
Brilliant
want to
slides.
shut your camera off, maybe that will help the stream. I could shut mine off too.
Okay, yeah, I could try that. I'll just yeah, just stop video. Okay.
I stopped my video, you stopped your video, so maybe things will talk a little bit easier. All right, for
Okay. Yeah. Okay. My name is Scott Harrington, and that Harrington, if you're into binoculars, know the name Phil Harrington, and no relation. I've never met him. I've emailed with him and whatnot, and he's a wonderful binocular observer hobby. Just strong bonds to promoting and for several of his notes on me. The
The
best
audio
one.
still is breaking up.
Hmm. We'll try on this one then. The computer's main audio right here. And so called Astronomy for All Ages and encouraged, but
That's still
was a
breaking
big
up
help.
too. Sorry.
I'm glad I don't know how to change that.
I think it might be the internet connection. You said you're on Starlink.
Yeah, I have to because it doesn't. There's not much. Yeah, at that point. Okay. Well, I'll just continue on and we'll see if it gets better.
Okay. If you need to pop off and then relog into Starlink, maybe get a better connection, we have no problem waiting for you for a little bit if you need to do that too. So if you want to continue on, see if it gets better, over.
Okay. I'd probably just get one that would know more, but he'd have to, he has the app and he'd tell me if it's not getting good signal. I'm not really familiar with how to do all that.
Oh,
But
gotcha.
and so uh
Well, we're catching
depends on
probably
I got
every. Oh, as I say, we're catching every fourth or fifth word that you're saying.
See on box.
keys. Um, maybe I should just like try something because my sister she has a better computer for this. I she just 5 minutes ago, so let me look into seeing what I can do here.
All right, why don't you go ahead and take care of that. I'll entertain my crowd for a little bit, and holler at me when you get popped back on. Is that all right?
I be already.
He may be going already.
All right. Okay. Well, let me. I have my business portion. I can go ahead and load up while he's working through his technical situation.
Tom?
Yeah.
We got 2 scopes that were returned tonight.
Okay.
So before I take them to the storage unit, if anybody wants to blow them out, we got the 8-inch Smith Cassegrain Celestron. Greg, what was the other one? No, the Celestron Newtonian. What?
Coronado PX.
Oh, okay.
I brought that from sitting.
Okay. Throw that in the trunk, take it over to the storage unit. If we had enough room.
All right. So
No, he's gonna pop back on. But
Yeah, he's gonna pop back on right when I. That's all right. That's all right. I think we'd rather listen to him than me. I mean, a lot of people would.
that a motion?
Yeah, can we? We'll pull Glenn up here. All right, so we do have some the classic review. I'm opening up this on my end so I can see when Scott pops back in on his. Well, everybody, welcome to our BSAS monthly meeting for September. I'm Tom Beckerman, current president. I always like to start off with a few cool images. Bobby posted this in our Google groups, the Wizard Nebula. I think there's a bigger picture later. Steve got a new toy, and he's taken some good pictures of the sun and all sorts of different ways. Steve, what's the name of this? See here? Thought I saw him. Yeah, the heliospectrograph. It's a new gadget that I was looking at potentially pre-ordering, but I don't know if I can afford any toys right now. All right, so we'll go ahead and call everything to business, and we'll go for a little bit. And if Scott comes back, we'll just temporarily pause the meeting. Hopefully, everybody had a chance to look at the meetings from the clips that we sent out. Does anybody have any questions on the ongoings in the last board meeting or member meeting? Didn't think so. I checked the members. I don't see Keith. Are you on here? I don't see Keith. I think we are at, hang on, let me pull this out of the way. We're at 238 members right now. Theo, do you have a treasurer's report for us?
Well, we spent since the last member meeting is $18.56 for the Zoom account. And we gave a check for $100 to our Middle Tennessee Science and Engineering Fair winner. Sold a poster last month and had somebody pay up at the meeting, and then we sold a poster online. I think I've got 25 or so left. So, we go 100, that's all, it's limited run, so. Make me run out. Anyway, we have $212.78 in the PayPal account. And on social media, our Facebook made it to being followed by 2.8K people.
Nice.
Go, Donna.
Yay, Donna. Donna, if you're listening, thank you. Is she on the Zoom tonight?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Donna. By the way, Theo, nice shirt.
Okay, and I have.
Oh, we got BSAS shirts. All right, I see Scott pop back on. Scott, do you want to give it another shot?
Sure. Yeah.
I can see you blinking and your head moving. It hasn't froze. So I'm hoping maybe we can get that.
Yeah, I hooked up to the Blue Yeti microphone and that should change the audio quality. And I also my brother says the Starlink is running fine, so I just disconnected and reconnected to the Wi-Fi. So I'm hoping that's all it was.
Perfect. All right. Well, if you want to share your screen, I need to get out of my
That's fine.
meeting.
You ready?
All right, just a second. All right, that's sharing. All right. Go ahead and see if you can share yours.
Okay.
It's promising.
Yeah, give me a second. I got to change it to where I share it so I can read what I'm sharing at the same time. It's a different one here. Okay, here we go. This one.
Technology is great until it isn't, right? Is that how it works?
Okay, here we go. What? Bodkins. Oh, give me a second. No. I don't want that to. Trying to get to load up for me. So how many of these things are loaded here? No. Just give me 10 seconds. Yeah. I have to load it up in presenter's view so I can see it and see all my notes too. Yes.
Isn't it amazing how we get stuck in that? Can't do anything without presenter view nowadays.
Yeah. Okay, get over there. Okay.
Good news is your quality's a lot better.
Ah, thank you. Yeah, I would suspect it's because of the Zoom just logging in and unlogging. Okay, so here, let's see. This should work. Right. Bear with me, please. Yes, I'm sure. I know.
All right, we see your screen.
Yeah. To load it up. It's presenter view here. Come on. Come on. Yeah, I know. There we go. Okay. All right.
Got it. You're good to go.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tom. So I've this one book, Astronomy for All Ages, was how I got going into this. So that's and more about that later. Um, so you're probably wondering why I observe with binoculars. Well, first I need to tell you where I observe with binoculars. And it's nice because the Ozarks is a mountainous region that stretches from west central Arkansas up into Missouri up toward the Mississippi River, and the Ouachita is below that. But what it means is that there's a lot of trees, and what that means is there's not a lot of industry. It's more like ranching. Which there's not as much light pollution. And a farmer or a cattle rancher, he owns a lot of acreage, but he's only got one house. And so I've got very dark skies for that reason. I mean, obviously they're getting brighter like everybody, but I am thankful. One thing about the trees is also they block any light pollution around the horizon. So for me, I have this false sense of like I only see the darkest parts of the sky because the trees cover the lower 20 degrees or 30 degrees. I don't know. So that's nice. Um, that's been a great benefit for binoculars because again, they don't have very large apertures. So I started at the age of 14 in 2008, and it the Philip Harrington's book, Astronomy for All Ages, he had these little charts, and one of them showed how you could see it said one of the objects to look at in binoculars, one of the best ones is M42, Messier 42 in Orion. And so I had this planisphere, and it would told me when to look at it, the book, but it didn't tell me about morning observing. Okay, so I had a planisphere and I found it. I had a Jack Horkheimer star wheel, and I found that M42 would be visible, and this is in August. And so I was like, it'll be visible before, sunrise. So I got up about four, I think it was like 4:30 or something, and I couldn't see it. And even though I could see the parts of Orion. And so what I learned right then was an interesting lesson. The moon. The moon was still up in the southwest, and it was washing out the sky. I had never before that really connected the two, that there's less stars when the moon is out. It was a total wake-up call for me. So what I did is I set my alarm for an hour later, got up, and I observed M42, and the moon was down. All of a sudden, so much more was visible. And I looked at it in binoculars, and that's that right. That for a lot of people, it's observing Saturn. And because my dad was interested in astronomy and had a telescope, I'd seen Saturn at this point. I'd seen Jupiter, I'd seen a comet, I'd seen Mars. But this for me, this so when people say what site was it that got you interested in astronomy? It was the Orion Nebula. It was the Orion Nebula in binoculars and naked eye. Because when I pulled the binoculars away from my face, I realized I could see it naked eye too. And I'm just standing there on the edge of our porch facing east, and I just dumbfounded. I just felt like nobody, a secret had been kept from me for too long. Like, I saw this and I just said, why don't more people know this? This thing is there. It's visible naked eye. I was just ecstatic. And so somehow that has stuck with me. The idea of binoculars, naked eye, that minimal aperture. And so my mom showed me that the Jack Horkheimer show was on. I started watching him, and he's all about naked eye and binoculars. Okay. And my mom picked me up some books from the library. I had my books from the 80s and 90s when my dad was into it. And so I was off. And my collection of binoculars has changed a little bit, but for the most part, I still have them all. I have a pair of the 7 by 35s. They're a Bushnell brand. I have the Celestron Skymaster 8 by 56. Those are an interesting ones. My dad always wanted those, so that's what I got early on after the 7 by 35s. And see, I've recently got a pair of roof prism binoculars because I wanted to learn how they worked. So I got a pair of 10 by 50s. I've got a pair of Oberwerk binoculars because they're a top rated brand in people's eyes. So I got a pair of 12 by 60s, and I recently changed out. I had a pair of the Skymaster Celestron 15 by 70s, but I got rid of them and got a pair of 15 by 50 image stabilized binoculars. And the reason is because I found that, see, I like to I like to hand hold my instruments, and I'll get to that more in a second. But anything that I have to put on a tripod loses some luster to me because at that point it starts to feel a little bit more like a telescope. You're having to do more setup and prep work. So my focus is always on binoculars being easy to use and convenient. So binoculars, they're interesting, and they should be the choice of every beginning astronomer. But because, personally, firsthand experience, it worked for me. But they're such simple looking instruments that they tend to get passed over by novice observers. And all I can admit, I always wanted my dad to set the telescope. And he said no, start with binoculars. And I was like, but the telescope. So because these don't look like a telescope. They aren't what you picture. But what it does is it takes a more seasoned amateur astronomer to suggest them to the novice. And that's why I'll be talking about all the benefits to binoculars tonight to you guys, so you will be equipped with the needed info to get more novice observers to use them. It's what I grew up with, and I'm extremely thankful for what they taught me. So, I use three particular terms when describing how I use binoculars. When I use the term handheld, I mean binos that you can sit in any chair and make effective use of, or even stand and get good use out of. It's all about holding them steady, and smaller ones tend to be easier to do that with. So when you start getting up to a little bit larger, like 10 by 50, a little higher magnification, I like to use the term well braced to describe how I use them because in this picture you'll see that's what well braced is. I don't have a tripod. I'm still just holding with my hands, but I'm using techniques. I'm resting my elbows. The eye cups are resting on my head. I'm trying to hold them really still. And so mounted is a term that I use when I'm describing them being attached to a tripod or a monopod. And I don't have a lot of experience using mounted ones because, again, I'm kind of a sucker for just holding them. I'll get into why I enjoy that more. But that's what this image is showing you. That's typically how I'll use all my binoculars. So the biggest reason, the number one reason to start with binoculars is because after just the unaided eyes, they are the best way to learn your way around the sky. Period, full stop. They are just the reason I know so much about the sky and where things are is because of binoculars. But they can also teach you what is possibly the most important lesson in our hobby, and one you should learn as soon as possible. Observing is done with the mind as much as the eyes. It's about teasing out an object from the vast multitude of stars and then realizing the totality of what you are being privy to. So I have to observe because binoculars have limited magnification and limited aperture. It forced me early on to say, all right, so I can see this. What am I seeing? What's going on here? So they encourage that better than a telescope. They encourage you to think about what you're seeing. So if you learn this lesson early on, you'll truly never stop enjoying the night sky. I really like binoculars. I can't say it enough. They're just so easy to use, and yet you get to use both eyes for the experience. I love the way you can use them to look at a flower just 8 feet away. Some have that short of a focus, and then you can look at some deer several hundred yards off in the distance, okay? Then you can swing them up and look at our moon. You could see craters, the dark regions where the lava plains are, the mare. Or you can even look at the moons of Jupiter. And here's an interesting thing. Just last month, I observed Saturn and Neptune together in the same field with a pair of 12 by 60 binoculars. But Neptune is 3 times further, 3 times more distant than Saturn. Okay, so you can't. It's hard to really fathom that when you see a tiny little disk of Saturn and just a point of light for Neptune, kind of a faded one. But that's the reality, and I'm to feel that to see to try and that's hard to do, but I'm working on it. And what really was the icing on the cake for me was that I could see close in just about 3 arc minutes east of Saturn was Titan, the second largest moon in the solar system. And I had timed this because I was hunting Saturn's typically its third brightest moon when it's at the correct side. It's Iapetus. It's visible only when it's on the western elongation because it gives its brightest hemisphere towards us, and I could see it. So I was seeing 2 moons of Saturn and Neptune in the same field. That's just an incredible connection because I go from observing, you know, deer in our backyard to the moon, craters on the moon, to moons in another part of the solar system with binoculars. But you can go further and use them to get a better look at comets, star clusters, and even galaxies outside of our own. From my location, my family's farm here in Arkansas, I can easily see the Andromeda Galaxy with the naked eye. And one night, I got up after midnight, and I was able to see the Andromeda Galaxy with the full moon high in the sky. I timed it to where they're both at the peak elevation, not too far apart. Yet I could still see the Andromeda Galaxy. I just had to stand in the shadow of some trees. That's how bright the Andromeda Galaxy is. And seeing that massive spiral galaxy by looking through a myriad of stars bound to our galaxy with the unaided eye is quite the experience, especially when I remind myself that it's moving almost directly towards us. It's about 2.5 million light years away, but I've also managed to see M81 at 12 million light years away, naked eye. It doesn't look like much at all that way. However, when you look at it in binoculars, it takes on the shape of a galaxy. I've come to learn that pretty much everything you can see with the naked eye looks even better in a pair of binoculars. That's why I always have a pair on me when I'm outside at night. But binoculars can show you a lot more than is visible with just the naked eye. The naked eye limit for me is like seventh magnitude here, but my Canon binoculars, my 12 by 15 by 50s, and my 12 by 60s can both reach 12th magnitude. Okay, so take M81 for example, since I just mentioned how it can be seen with the naked eye. With a simple pair of handheld binoculars, I can see galaxies like NGC 5018 in Virgo that are 10 times farther than M81. 10 times farther. So I'm seeing what I can see naked eye to what I can see with like a pair of 10 by 50s. That's incredible. You've just expanded your visible universe. And that's actually twice as far away. NGC 5018, it's twice as far away as the Virgo cluster, which is around 55 million light years away. So that's incredible. But you can go even further yet with binoculars. I've used my overworked 12 by 60 binoculars, well braced. So I did it one morning in the spring, and I worked really hard, and I was able to confirm seeing this galaxy. It's about 300 million light years away, almost a third of a billion light years. It's a monster, NGC 4881. It lies at the heart of the Abel cluster 1656 in Coma Berenice. And so a pair of binoculars can truly delve into the realm of telescopes if you try hard enough. And because I've learned to observe with the mind as much as the eyes, I get just as much joy seeing a galaxy 300 million light years away in binoculars that I'm briefly holding up to my face as I lay in my yard. I get just as much joy seeing that as I do seeing a galaxy 3 billion light years away in a 36-inch telescope, something I've done. The only real difference is that the ladder is a lot more dangerous because I'm standing 8 feet in the air on a ladder. So that's just incredible to me that I've learned to savor the joys of telescopic observing and binocular observing. They're both on the same plate for me. So remember earlier how I mentioned I like to observe deer in binoculars and then turn them towards the sky? Well, binoculars allow me to connect to both. And it's jaw-dropping to think about what can be seen with something that you can carry with one hand. That word, connect, is actually important because it describes why I like binoculars so much. But I didn't actually start using that word until a few years ago, after I read an online article written by former Sky and Telescope associate editor Tony Flanders. He's on Cloudy Nights and stuff, so you'll bump into him. He's a great guy. He did a test where he compared using a 70 millimeter refracting telescope at 16 power. There's variability in those eyepieces, but he put one in that just made it for that magnification. So 16 by 70, what he was going for, and a pair of 15 by 70 binoculars. Okay. What he found when he compared the views was that they were pretty similar. But that's just the views. The viewing experience was better with the binoculars in two ways. The first was that he found he could relax his eyes more by using two of them, which is something to note. You shouldn't get any form of eye strain from a pair of binoculars unless their two halves are out of alignment. And if you don't know what eye strain is, you'll know it when you see it, because if you ever have to get a pair of glasses and it didn't quite get your prescription right, or the pupillary distance or something, it hurts. It's uncomfortable. You're straining to try and merge. Your brain is straining to merge those images. That's eye strain. Okay, so that was the first one. The second one is he described as a connection. He found that, and I quote, "In binoculars, you look directly toward your target, but with telescopes, you look at right angles to the way the scope is pointed. The connection with the unaided eye view that's so strong in 7 power and 10 power binoculars is beginning to stretch thin at 15 power, but it is still there." So you understand, he's saying that, and he's something that I've always noticed is all my telescopes in some way I'm not looking at the sky. My face is either facing into my daub, or down into my daub, or down to the ground when I'm looking at Schmidt-Cassegrain. And so I don't feel like I'm looking up. And so there's something about holding those binoculars up to my face and just everything changing, just a whole new view. Whereas a telescope, so I lose that connection a little bit. It's hard to describe that in more words than that. But binoculars are a great choice for beginners because of their simplicity, ruggedness, extreme portability, low cost, and wide field views. The sky is a big, big place, and yet, when using handheld binoculars, I've never been lost for more than a minute or two. There's special instruments that way. Telescopes, on the other hand, can be just too much for a beginner. Heck, even as an experienced telescope user, I've been lost 10 minutes or so for more times than I'd like to remember. Binoculars, I never had that trouble. So, in that same article I mentioned, or I referenced, Tony Flanders put the latter part well when he also wrote, and I again quote, "Anybody who's looked through a telescope at 100 power or 100 magnification will know exactly what I mean. Familiar star patterns are completely lost. Things that are invisible to the unaided eye fill the entire eyepiece. It's an entirely different reality. It's though you've been picked up by a tornado and carried to Oz. And I really like the way you put that because that is for me, I don't, it's a different connection looking through a telescope at something. I just, I don't know. I enjoy doing it, but I don't have that. I don't get like shivers up my spine when I see a galaxy in binoculars that's so far away. I'm just like, whoa, these little puppies that I'm holding in my hand did that. It's exciting. So now I'm going to cover how binoculars work and choosing the right ones for you. And we're going to start with the Poro versus roof prism debate. So before I start, please make a firm note in your mind that the term roof prism should basically be synonymous with the term handheld. The reason is because roof prism binoculars can only have so large an aperture due to how close the barrels have to be set for your eyes. As you can see on the image on your left, they're very straight looking, and so those apertures, if they get very big, then the exit pupils, they can't get any closer. So thus, you will never see a pair of 15 by 70 roof prism binoculars because nobody's eyes are that far apart. They can't handle that. So when people talk about how expensive roof prism binoculars beat Poro prism binoculars for optical quality, they're not talking about large binoculars, only in their size class. That has to be remembered. Okay, so the roof prism versus Poro prism binocular debate is very much akin to the refractor versus reflector debate. And if you don't know what the latter is, I'll try and briefly explain. Optically, the finest telescope design is the refractor because it has inherently less light loss than all others. They're also simple to maintain and don't easily get knocked out of collimation. But making even just a good quality refractor takes great care since refracting, which is bending light, introduces chromatic aberration. So exotic glasses and special coatings have to be used to negate those things. And doing so raises the price, which is the reason the finest of them cost so darn much per inch of aperture. Reflectors, on the other hand, while not very rugged, have the simplest telescope design, and because they are only bouncing light, they take less care and work to make them good quality, which explains why reflecting telescopes have the cheapest price per inch of aperture. The debate then is this: is it better to buy the largest reflector you can afford or the highest quality refractor? The reflector will always be of much larger aperture and thus allow you to see deeper, while the refractor will give you crisper and richer views as compared to a reflector of the same size. To avoid this conundrum, many amateur astronomers own both a large reflector and a small refractor. That's pretty ingenious, you just cut out the conundrum, just own both. But in the binocular world, most just own Poro prism binoculars, be they large or small. A lot of this is because of word of mouth about poorly made roof prism binoculars of the past. Nowadays, though, there are roof prism binoculars you can purchase that noticeably outperform Poro prism binoculars of the same size. Caveat is that, like refractor telescopes, superior quality roof prism binoculars cost several times that of their Poro prism equivalents. But one very important thing to remember is that unlike the refractor versus reflector debate, which is simply about the main optics of telescopes, binoculars are a complete package. So when you buy them, you are buying not just the apertures, but also the eyepieces. That's why in general, the more you pay for your roof prism binoculars, the more you will get closer to having Telview quality eyepieces instead of Plausils. This is a point that many overlook when considering what kind of binoculars they want to be their main handheld pair under the stars. So I'll just sidestep and say that that's what I have experienced, that I started with the Poro prism binoculars, but the roof prisms are quite impressive. And it takes it takes a lot of quality in either one to really show binoculars are the best, but they are a package deal. That's why when I paid for a pair of those Canon 15 by 50 image stabilized binoculars, I'd never looked through a pair of that quality before. I mean, you're paying over $1,000 and they are just flat, crisp. They're just the color rendition is just I've always just thought binoculars were binoculars. But I'm seeing now that there is, if you pay for it, you will get the top of the line. And it has to do with both aperture and eyepiece. Excuse me. So I like to think of poro prism binoculars as akin to reflecting telescopes, while roof prism binoculars are akin to refractors. One is cheaper per inch of aperture, but one is of higher optical quality. By the way, roof prism binoculars, and this is something I didn't know until a few years ago, they are the number one used by hunters, outdoorsmen, and the like because they are more compact and basically don't get knocked out of collimation. They want as much as they can get because they can't simply carry around larger ones like we astronomers. So that's birding binoculars, hunting. That's where you see a lot of roof prism, but that does not mean they're not good for astronomy. That's just where the market is. We astronomers are not hunters of that in that sense. So in choosing your handheld binoculars, you want to make sure that you follow a few guidelines, and weight magnification is important here. You want to maximize, the weight as much as you can so you get as much binocular. And that's usually based on the aperture. So I found that around 40 ounces or a little over 2.5 pounds is about the heaviest binocular you can handhold. Or it's either that or it's 12 power, 12 times magnification, whichever one comes first. That's why my Oberwerk 12 by 60s are about as good as they get because they're like 39, 40 ounces and they're 12 power. If you go over one of those, you're probably going to be playing with fire and you may regret it. So I stick below 12 power or stick below 40 ounces. Then, working off your budget, you have to decide if you want Poro or roof prism binoculars. Like I said, Poro is the cheaper ones, and that's there's nothing wrong with them. They're good. They don't have that tele-view quality typically. Okay. After that, you choose magnification, size of binoculars. I always look for these little features like individual focus. If you could try them out, you want them to be stiff. The individual focus, which is the one that up closer to your eyes, works off the little uh, the eyepiece. Because if it's stiff, it won't spin on you by accident. You want good coatings. You want to say fully multi-coated. You want what is called full clear aperture. And roof prisms, um, this is no problem. They always have full aperture. But I found that cheaper binoculars, like some Celestron sells, and even Oberwerk, they have a baffle up behind the aperture lens, and that stops them down a little bit. That helps sharpen them up and whatnot. But you aren't getting. Then my 12 by 60s are technically not 60 millimeters of aperture because they've been stopped down just inside there to 54. So you just want to be aware of that. That does change how much light you bring in. Um, Extra low dispersion is something you'll hear a lot referenced, ED, and it helps by with the chromatic aberration, and it's something you'll see a lot of times with roof prism binoculars. Because if you're looking at the moon a lot, you'll see a fringe of like red or like purple on either sides. If you're not looking at bright objects, you probably won't notice it, but people like that for vibrant colors when they're looking at birds and stuff. And collimation, you want your binoculars to be collimated when you receive them and stay collimated. Roof prism, they don't have a problem staying collimated. A lot of people complain about Celestrons sometimes coming not collimated properly. And there are ways to collimate them, but it's a bit tricky, I guess. I've never done it. Oberwerk is a good brand because they collimate all theirs right before they ship them to you. So that's pretty sweet. Apparent field of view, sometimes written as AFOV. This is important, but not terribly so. What it is it's like your eyepieces, the 82 degree field, It's just telling you what it feels like you're looking through. You're looking through a straw or you're looking through a drinking glass. So most binoculars tend to be around 60 degrees if it's a good quality pair, which is more than the Plössl eyepieces. I think Plössls are like 52 degrees, so most binoculars have a better field of view than your cheap eyepieces you get with your beginner telescope. But I am personally more interested in true field of view, since apparent field of view is more about aesthetics. It's more about that spacewalk feel. I'm more interested in the widest I can get, so I like binoculars that are 4.5 to 6 to 7 degrees, so I don't get lost. And of course, you start paying for you start paying more when you want that widest true field of view or apparent field of view, as you can imagine. Um, a few tips, and what people have said is, and I've never tried them, but I trust people that give these reviews. The Nikon Action Extreme 10 by 50s are usually rated pretty darn good in the Poro Prism class, while the Celestron Nature DX ED is considered one of the best in the roof class, roof prism class, and that's for the prices and everything. That you're getting pretty good quality, you're not having to pay too much. Um, this is an interesting chart. When I got into binoculars, I found this guy had really worked hard. Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, yeah, has the Canadian Roy Bishop. He created this by simply multiplying the magnification by the aperture. You can see that, and by doing so, you are putting more weight on magnification than aperture. And I found this works, since if you compare my Celestron 8 by 56 and my Oberwerk binoculars, the 12 by 60, but they only have a clear aperture of 54, so they're very, very similar in aperture. One has 12 magnification, one has 8. Well, one has 50% more magnification, even though they're the same aperture. And it allows me to see almost a full magnitude deeper. And so he's correct to be putting more weight on magnification. And so this is an interesting one. If any of you order the Observer's Handbook every year, I think I need to. The Astronomical League does a great deal, and they're only like $25, $30. They come out every year, and this chart is in there. And it's a fun one because it's kind of nerdy, but I enjoyed kind of comparing how they work. And I need to get my next year's copy for the other lists they put in there. Okay, so here's something interesting. This is interesting for sure. Now, last year I was becoming a little annoyed with my 12 by 60s. It's been nagging on me for years. Are these really the best ones? They had the right magnification and the right weight. So were they the top that I could do handheld? And it dawned on me that they may not be what I like to call the most powerful handheld binoculars. It's because I had started researching and I started researching a pair of binoculars that cost over $1,000. They're the Canon 15 by 50 image stabilized. They may be the ultimate since they only weigh about 43 ounces, yet their 15 power magnification both break my limits, but they're image stabilized. So they basically the image will counter to your shakes to some degree. And I can now confirm, since I've purchased one on cloudy nights back earlier this year from a guy that reached out to me with his pair, I can now confirm these unicorns do exist. They're incredible. And I have since fallen in love with binocular observing all over again. Since the views, like I said earlier, they are just incredible. They have premium optics, and the image stabilization feature allows me to use them like a pair of handheld binoculars. So I keep them in like a hard case, like from Harbor Freight or whatnot, and I just carry them with one arm, and I just carry them around and plop down in my chair. It's just, oh my gosh. They're expensive, but I've I can't praise them enough. If you're really into binocular observing, they're pretty sweet. So, what can you actually enjoy looking at in handheld binoculars? Well, as you're probably starting to pick up the vibe, pretty much everything, if you have the right attitude. And what I mean by that is, I mean being content, contenting yourself with being able to savor your ability to view objects with so little. It's not the fact that there's so much detail visible. It's the fact that I can even see the object that gets me excited. And that's what my mindset has been. Only I only had my dad's old sky telescopes from the 80s and the 90s and some of his books, and they didn't really have a lot of information about binocular observing. So every object I saw that wasn't in there got me excited. So I've tried to write some articles about binocular observing. One of them was about sky. It was a Sky and Telescope article I wrote about the far out globular clusters. Not, I think all of them were visible in binoculars except for maybe one in the article, but that's really cool because see, these globular clusters, because they're more than just one star, they're a whole cluster of stars and they're densely packed, they can be visible at really far out distances. And like take, for example, Messier 54, which is considered part of maybe an extragalactic globular cluster that's being absorbed into ours. It is so freaking far away. It's almost 90,000 light years away, and yet I can see it. Easy peasy, okay? So that's giving me a distance. Um, the other ones that I've looked at, these are all in binoculars. 6 NGC 6229, even further, and then NGC 2419 in Lynx. And that one, I have to say, is just incredible. If you see it in any instrument, binoculars included, it's more than, and try and wrap your head around this. It's more than 1/10 the distance to the Andromeda Galaxy. Okay, more than 1/10 the distance, and it's well over 100,000 light years farther than any of the globular clusters in the Large Magellanic Cloud. So I don't know if any of you have been to the Southern Hemisphere. I have not. I hope to go maybe in Australia 2028, see that eclipse, get down there. But this globular cluster is further than anybody down in Australia looks at in the Large Magellanic Cloud, the large or small. This one, further than that. So everyone's all excited about those. But I have to say, this is a pretty cool treat. And what I like is to try and again visualize this in my mind. And so this Bill Schumi, he's had an interesting app that I've liked to use because kind of get a feel for like the distance scale, because they always say that the Milky Way is like 120 thousand light years, and so this thing is beyond the disk, in essence, of the Milky Way, M54. It's out there. But you know what? NGC 6229 is even further. And if you see this image, the little yellow dots are other globular clusters. And it's further than a lot of them. And yet, here's little NGC 2419 in Lynx. He's so far out there. Like I said, he's more than 1/10 the way to the Andromeda Galaxy. And that's just incredible. That is just it's a fun sight to see in binoculars. So when you go beyond globular clusters, you start getting into galaxies, are the next thing further out. And I also wrote an article about them. There's tons of galaxies. I'm going to get to that a little bit later here, but that was an interesting article to write because my editor said that I wanted to slip in like one or two observations with like a small telescope, and they said, no, no, you said you're doing a binocular article, so you're doing a binocular article. So everything had to be binoculars. And it was an interesting challenge to try and describe all these galaxies. I had like 10 or 12 of them just in various sizes of binoculars because I'm used to looking at them, but at some point there's only so much detail you can see in them. So you may want to, if you can get your hands on that, it's kind of fun to see how I tried to describe them. Um, so I'm sure all of you have heard of the star T Corona Borealis due to the massive hype over its expected eruption into the next, say, I don't know, 14 months. They say sometime this year or next. Well, it's a great target for checking in on every clear night with binoculars. Not that I do exactly, but sometimes I do. And binoculars, perfect for that. Okay. And also, what about this famous orbiting observatory? We always, it's been such a big deal over the last 30 plus years. Well, due to the inclination of its orbit, Hubble Space Telescope doesn't get very high for folks in North America. But I've seen it in binoculars and with the naked eye as a third magnitude star in the south. It's a real treat to get to see it with your own eyes. It's such a famous telescope. And binoculars are, again, the best way to do it because it's zipping across. It's hard to track a telescope over a fast moving object, but the Hubble Space Telescope, perfect object to go hunting for in binoculars. But granted, you have to use like Heavens Above and a few apps and stuff to give you that track and know what time. But okay, so I talked about my 8x56 binoculars. I talked and I did I used them quite a bit, and so these are a few of my stats basically. I've added up how many objects I've seen in them, and I'm pretty proud of it. These are numbers that I just never these are not in my wildest dreams. It's a lot of it's because I'm real dogged and I'm just a bit competitive maybe with myself, maybe just a little bit. But to consider that I've seen 2% of all the known galaxies in the Virgo cluster, known as the Virgo I cluster, that we all like to observe, the realm of the galaxies. I haven't seen 2% of them in 8 by 56 binoculars. I did the whole list. I figured it all out. That's 2% in binoculars. I thought that cluster was a massive thing, but I've seen a little bit. I've seen a lot of open clusters. I've seen quite a few globular clusters. Like I said, more than half confirmed in our galaxy. And I've seen oodles of planetary nebulas, local group galaxies. I've even seen in the last few years I saw one object. These objects that are kind of like the cutting edge of a visual astronomy to some degree. Some people believe they can't be seen, some people do. They're called integrated. The technical term is integrated flux nebula, or the offhand term is galactic cirrus. And I've seen one of those in binoculars, and that was pretty cool in the 8 by 56s. And of course, I've completed the Messiers. Um, I've seen as many Caldwell objects as I can see. They work from north to south, and so eventually they go below my horizon permanently. I've done the Astronomical League's all their programs that have binoculars. Nailed them all. Their Deep Sky program. I've even worked away on their telescope programs, like the Herschel 400. I've seen over 2/3 of the objects on that in my 8 by 56s. Just it's just an incredible amount, and I like the Astronomical League's programs, and it was fun. So that's like deep sky objects, and here's the solar system that you can also use it on. You can see the phases of Venus in binoculars, along with Mercury, Uranus, Neptune. Great uses for binoculars. I've chased down dozens of dwarf planets and asteroids. I observe multiple comets every year with these things. I like to observe Jupiter's 4 largest moons and try and show people them because they really get a kick out of the fact that they can see them in binoculars. I remember not even thinking I could when I first started. Um, I've detected the rings of Saturn back a few years ago when they're more open. So what I did is I decided not to squander all my information and I compiled it. I tried to compile everything I'd done, all that and stuff. And so this is what I'm wanting people to get a chance to use. And so let's say you found a pair of binoculars you want to use. But what do you observe then? Well, I've mentioned a lot of things that I've observed, but you have to have that information for yourself. And so what I've done is I've created this list, and I started it back when I first started because I would record what I saw. And eventually I started realizing that this object has no magnitude listed and this one does, but this one is brighter than that one. So I started kind of ranking them 1 to 5, and then I eventually said 1 to 10. And so I created a ranking system for all these objects. And I published it online. And then I published a revised edition where I found some more objects, and I'm pretty much done with it. But even though I say that, um, a reader discovered in late 2019 some small mistakes, and so I came up with the final revision in 2020, and I just keep adding little changes or things. In November of 2020, I added seeing an emission nebula in Cygnus, you know, just things kept, and so it's a never-ending project. But here's a sample page. At the end of this presentation, I will have a QR code anybody can hold up their phone and take a picture of, and it'll take you to this document, and you can download it. What I did is I came up, like I said, a rating system, and so I work from naked eye rate, and then I work in binoculars, and it's just in, like I said, one pair of binoculars, and I had to do this on the best of nights. I didn't have a sky quality meter reader or anything. I just had to watch the weather and be like, I think tonight's going to be a nice one, and I just keep observing and re-observing, and I compare them, and so lengthy process for sure. But what I'm trying to do is bring to people information because a lot of stuff is set up for telescope observing lists. This is a binocular observing list. And this is only with 7 by 35 binoculars. So if you can't see it in, 10 by 50s or something, then you may want to go to a darker sky. But this is the smallest binoculars I own. So in effect, you can work your way through a category from the brightest objects to the faintest in incremental steps. Without it, you either end up with a messy list of objects that should be visible or with no list at all. This means you could be missing out on viewing a certain object in your binoculars for countless years, or get discouraged by looking at one that's actually fainter than you'd expect. And that latter thing has happened to me. I've wasted time looking at an object that I didn't realize I can't see at all. It had an erroneous magnitude placed to it. So you don't, this will help, and you can compare objects across the categories too. Like a bright nebula rating of 6 is similar to a galaxy rating of 6. Okay, so that's that part. Okay, so what if you want to do more? Well, if you'd asked me that question just 2 or 3 years ago, I'd have been hard pressed to say yes with such vigor because I'd only used it for casual. So now I can say it's differently. So I like to look at novae that go off, and I'm always interested in them because they're transient phenomena basically, and you can make magnitude estimates with your binoculars or small telescope and submit them to the AAVSO like I have done here. And so I'm always doing that. I saw nova a week ago in my telescope, and I submitted the information because I made an estimate. And comets. Comets are also something you can do. I like viewing as many comets as I can every year, and I get a real tickle out of seeing them in binoculars. And this is what's interesting is there's what some people call telescopic comets, and then there's like bright comets. Typically, the bright comets are best seen in binoculars, and I kid you not, that has been the way it was. It is for every of these spectacular ones that I see, like Neowise, or that one from last year that I'm not remembering the name for at this moment. Um, Binoculars, they work really good for that. Um, Another one is crescent moons. People do this practically competitively, okay? And they are the best tool. I have used them countless times for observing thin crescent moons, and I keep observing or trying to observe. They're so hard, but that is another one to keep in mind. Hunting what's called sub 24-hour crescent moons. Most of the visual records have been set with binoculars, and another one as I've recently learned of, is estimating the brightness of low Earth orbiting satellite constellations. I didn't know about this until a few years ago, but these uh, these satellites are being sent up. They're known as Starlink or OneWeb or AST Mobile or Amazon. Those are the companies, and they're fast moving because they're low Earth orbit, and they need a wide field of view because as you're trying to follow them along, you're trying to compare it to the stars in the field and say, oh, because they brighten and dim as they cross, they do things, and they're trying to figure out how bright they are and submit that, and so they can model it, the people on the ground that are not actually part of the company. And to tell us, that's how you see these reports. Starlinks have been recorded at this magnitude. This is brighter than what is recommended. Well, it's because people are actually recording them with binoculars and then writing that down, submitting that. So I got started doing this a few years ago, and I haven't had as much time of late, but it's something that you can do with binoculars. All right, so I'm going to finish with an interesting story, and hopefully you guys will get excited about this one. So there's a star in Canis Major. It's a variable star. It's known as VY Canis Majoris, and we've known it for quite a while, probably coming up on 90 years we've known about this star. And it is one of the largest we've ever seen in our galaxy, okay? As you can see by that diagram. So in February of 2023, I was involved in researching and observing nebulae in the section of the Milky Way that runs from Canis Major down to Puppis. In particular, I was interested in trying to observe the large emission nebula McDonald 44, which is the brightest part of Sharpless 2-310. I was trying to observe it in my 6-inch and the star VY Canis Majoris, which is possibly associated with it physically, same distance interacting. Well, the star is unique for not only being one of the largest known in our galaxy, but for the small red reflection nebula visible as ejected material around it. That month, I succeeded in seeing McDonald 44 in my 6-inch and the nebula around VY Canis Majoris with my 10-inch and 16-inch scopes. But it was while I was reading about the strange history. See, this is the thing, I connect the two. I like to observe and then study. Well, it was while I was reading about it, the morphology and the history surrounding the nebula, that I stumbled upon a 1998 paper by Joel Kastner and David Weintraub titled Hubble Space Telescope Imaging of the Mass-Losing Supergiant VY Canis Majoris. Using images taken in 1996 with the Hubble, they concluded they had discovered the stellar disk of VY Canis Majoris is actually completely obscured. You get that? The stellar disk is completely obscured by its own dusty envelope. Thus, the compact core, they said, is pure scattered light rather than direct emission from the stellar photosphere. So when they imaged it, there was always a brighter spot in this nebula, and they came to the conclusion that brighter spot is not the star. We are not seeing the star at all. They came to this conclusion after finding that the bright core region changed its position depending on whichever wavelength an image was taken in. So it basically would move around. They're like, no, that's not it. Okay, so subsequent papers by other authors agreed with their finding. However, since this was 25 years since Castor and Weintraub's discovery, and not once had I heard about it, I was incredulous. So, in March of 2023, I reached out via email to Dr. Roberta Humphreys, a distinguished professor at the University of Minnesota who has written many papers on VY Canis Majoris. She was kind enough to write back saying, yes, the visible nebulosity is due to scattered light by the circumstellar dust, which obscures the star along our line of sight. We estimate as much as 3 magnitudes of obscuration or extinction. Oh my goodness. She confirmed it. The sky's, and this is where I'm at now. The sky's brightest variable nebula was an easy binocular object in Canis Major, and yet I might be the first, or I might have been the first person, or first amateur astronomer to look at it with such an instrument and fully understand what I'm seeing. What I'm saying is, it's a variable. What they thought was a variable star, so it had that designation. So it's a variable object. There's no star visible, so it's a variable nebula. To boot, it's red, so that adds cool, when you look at it, it's a little orange thing. And it is bright. It's about magnitude 8.5. And it's not all the star atlases plot a star. It's not a star. It's a nebula. Okay? I then contacted noted amateur astronomer and author Stephen James O'Mara to share my discovery. Quotation marks on discovery. He was excited to hear about it, and in May of 2023, he used his 3-inch Teleview refractor to take a look. While he found it stellar at low power, he was surprised to see it appear definitely swollen at 300 power when compared to stars of similar magnitude. So I encourage anybody that if you want to enjoy what being on the cutting edge of like binocular observing is like, go after that one because it is such a unique star. And the fact that you can't even see it and it's a nebula, you'll get to see something almost no one's looked at, and you can do it in binoculars. So that concludes my presentation. As you can see here, I've got a QR code for anybody that wants to scan it and try and it'll direct you to my Google Drive where I'm just hosting this book, and so hopefully that works.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. I'm gonna stop my screen share when everybody's ready there, Tom.
All right, just a second. I'm downloading it now, and I can send the link to our
Oh.
club as well. So
Okay.
I appreciate it. Is that all right?
Yeah, I'm glad. I want everybody to get their hands on it. It has double stars. It has my asteroids I observed. It has open clusters, dark nebulas. It has, I mean, if you observe everything on that list, you're seeing a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah. All right.
funny how that works. All right. Well, thank you so much for your talk today.
hmm Yeah. Yeah, I really appreciate you guys inviting me. That was cool. I'm sorry I didn't get to meet you guys at the Astronomical League convention in Utah. I wish I would have bumped into you guys.
Yeah, I know you ran into Tony, so uh, at least we got one of us out there.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
Uh,
so any questions from the distant
yeah, we got a couple
I
questions.
just noticed you did mention dark nebulas. I have binoculars. I have my job that I always take, but I always take binoculars. I have a pair of Nikon Astrolux, I think they're called. And they're real nice. They got a good flattened field. And my favorite thing is to go through the Milky Way and look at the dark nebula. And I noticed you didn't mention that a lot, but it just, if I look at it with my telescope, there's so much light coming into the telescope, you don't see the contrast as much as when you look at a dark nebula through a binocular. It's really, to me, it's really neat. So I saw at the end you did mention dark nebula. Do you enjoy that, or?
I do. I have to. Some people, binoculars are one of the best instruments for that. I'm working on an article. I'm gonna make observations this fall, hopefully, for a future Sky and Telescope article about the dark nebulas in Cygnus, because I've realized Cygnus is just chock full of them. And yeah, binoculars are great because they really show the field. You get to see all the stars, and then boom, it's gone. All the stars are gone. So yeah, yeah, there's so much in that. But yeah, binoculars are really good for dark nebulas because sometimes those things are big, like the Pipe Nebula and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other questions? So for we're here in Nashville, not the darkest skies in the world. Do you have recommendations for size and power binoculars for, not horribly light polluted skies? Like I'm out on the suburbs a little bit. So, but do you have any recommendations?
Well, yeah, see there's a catch 22 there because what I found is that like say when I observe along the horizon, that's when I experience a washing out of the sky, and so I'm losing my familiar stars. I want more field. And so that's where I would recommend like a pair of 8 by 42s so you get more field, you don't get lost so easily. But at the same time, the 10 by 50s, if you can manage that extra magnification and the slightly narrower field, you'll get a little darker background sky, so you'll see fainter stars. And so I usually recommend those are the two. Usually, if you want 8 by 42s for zooming around the sky, and then 10 by 50s for more enjoying it. After that, you become more specialized. And like me, you start getting a pair of 12 by 60s or image stabilized, or you go tripod mounted 15 by 70s.
Gotcha. Well, that's cool. All right. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, also, I have a binocular mount so that I can show other people. You didn't mention that versus tripod. I can't use a tripod with binoculars. It's terrible to me. But I can
What is a
use
binocular mount? How does I'm
it's
trying to
a parallelogram,
Oh, okay.
and then you can focus it. It's just like having them in your hand, but you could stop, and then if someone else is there, you can lower them to their height or raise them, and someone else can see what you saw. It's kind of a nice feature.
Oh yes. No, that's an excellent way to observe with binoculars. I'm just too lazy to want to set up one of those parallelogram mounts.
My laziness is I'll pull out a porch chair and flip it all the way back and just let them rest on my eyeballs. So that's where my laziness is. It works. I can see the sky.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have some binocular chairs which rotate 360 and go any recline, and they hold the binoc. I want to get one of those, but I just fall asleep.
Yeah.
You're too comfortable.
Yeah. Oh,
Be a little on
Yeah.
edge.
binoculars going to hurt when they fall on your face. I think an iPhone hurts.
One
But
advantage those vortex you had on the screen have over everybody else is they do come with a lifetime warranty.
That's right. Yeah, Vortex is especially that impressive because of, like you said, the Crossfires, their different brand, the Diamondback, they all come with that lifetime warranty. And it's there's it doesn't matter who owns them. You could give them to your brother or you know, they don't care. They will bring them, you ship them to them, and they will clean them and completely refurbish them. That's an incredible warranty.
Yeah, well, good deal. Any other questions? Good deal. Well, thank you, Scott. We'll let you go ahead and go as we go throughout the day, so you don't have to sit through our wonderful business meeting. But thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Yeah, thank
Scott.
you guys. I appreciate that. Bye.
All right, bye. Have a good night.
Okay.
All right, let's see.
One recommendation I'd make, Tom,
Yep.
you're looking at binoculars, go to Bass Pro Shops over at Opryland, maybe REI, and in Brentwood. But go to the optics case and ask to see through them. And you'll see those 7x35 Bushnells compared to the Nikon up to the Vortex up through the Swarovskis or the Zeiss. You'll see the difference. You'll figure out which ones you can afford, which ones you can't, or don't want to. But I landed with Vortex versus say Swarovski because I'm pretty sure mine are probably 95% as good at half the price.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good deal. Well, it's exciting. Now I kind of want to play with my binoculars. I brought up my I have two Celestrons up here. I think I've got the 15x70s and a 10x50 up here. I tool around with them while I'm dwarfing my sky with my computerized telescope. So while it's doing its thing, I do my thing. So it's always fun. Learn the sky a little bit while you're collecting data. You don't have to worry about bumping things and stuff like that. So it's always fun. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and continue with our meeting. We already got we got to call this order. Asked about minutes. We got members. We were at 238. Theo gave numbers. I hope somebody copied that down. If not, we can catch that again. We just hit 2.8 on Facebook, so we don't know any likes anymore because they stopped giving us likes, but we'll go from there. A couple things for business. Our next member meeting is potentially scheduled for October 15th. Dyer has an engagement that came up and they can't host us on the 15th. And so working with them, they do have the 16th available. I'm looking at some other options for that meeting. I'll send out an email notifying you guys of whatever that change is. If we can keep it on the 15th, that'd be great. It may end up being a Zoom session, but we're planning on having a speaker in person who's traveling. So it would make, it might be either Zoom October 16th or another location on the 15th. So there's a lot of things up in the air. Not sure of any of the logistics yet, but we'll definitely get there whenever that comes up. Let's see, we're starting to book up Star Party locations for next year. Always looking for speaker recommendations. Scott was recommended by Tony, so it's always good to have that. We're looking into, speakers about astrophotography, visual astronomy. We're also thinking about setting up groups coming up and, towards the end of the year, maybe at the beginning of next year, kind of not breaking, but like adding, an astrophotography subgroup or a visual astronomy subgroup, so you can kind of share tips and all those things, as you're out observing. I didn't get to update my BSASNashville.com site. My internet was weird, but it's pretty much the same information, except this is different, and your clear sky chart's probably a little bit different tonight. But this is where you can find us online. As Theo mentioned, we have 25-ish posters left. So if you're interested in one of these limited edition Nashville prints, the Hat Show prints for Bernard Seaford's 90th anniversary, you can click that link and it'll take you to PayPal order. If you do put in an order, let us know if you're picking up or if we should ship it to you. And if we're going to ship it to you, please email us so we can have your address so Theo can ship it to you. That always helps out. some things on our site. I always like to point out the clear sky chart. The darker, the better. Cloud cover. This was last month. The darker, the better. All around dark is even best, but we can look at cloud cover and transparency and things like that. If it's cloudy outside, you're going to see a lot of white. So probably not the best for observing, but you can try your best out there. Sometimes it's partly cloudy, still shows up as a little less white, but it's a good little tool to see if it's worth lugging out the 16-inch scope or your binoculars, because those are easy to lug around, right? All right. Also on the website, we have a few things. If you want to become a member, if you're not a member already, if you're not a member and you're here, welcome. This is how you would potentially become a member. There's a link here that says become a member. If you click on that, it'll take you to here. And this is where our member launch page is. Member benefits, you have an Eclipse newsletter that goes out monthly. Discounted rate to astronomy and sky and telescopes, which I realize my subscriptions have run out, so I need to update those. We are members of the Astronomical League, so we get access to their website, the Reflector, but we also get access to the Astronomical League's challenges and programs and things like that, like the binocular observing program. And so we can potentially get pins and send in our observations of Messier objects and things like that. So we get to take advantage of that. You get to vote in BSAS elections, which we'll have one coming up in December. And we also have private star parties that we hold once a month. To join, you go to this website, Night Sky Network, and I'll bring that up later on in the talk. You join there and create an account. You can click here to pay. An individual membership is $25. Family 35, student 15, senior family 20, and this is per year. So it's not too bad for getting all these cool things. Plus you get to hang out with us. I put these QR codes up here. If you scan them, they should take you to where it is, because if you're sitting here looking at it, you could probably scan better with your phone. We do have loaner equipment available. As Gene said, we have a couple of them here tonight. So if you're interested in borrowing a scope, we have a few that are available. There is a list up on the Google Groups. You should be able to get the list by clicking on the QR code to take you to a Google Doc. You should be able to get there. It's one of the perks of being a member. It's of no additional cost to you. So if you're thinking about trying, maybe you want to buy a Dob. Well, we've got a couple that you could potentially borrow to see if you're going to lug them out in the middle of the night and put them up, when the clouds come in, right? Is it worth it traveling with it? Or are you like, oh, I would like one for the house, and a Dob does great at the house, right? Like I can get a big Dob because I don't have to move it, right? Or you want to build an observatory around it, whatever you want to do, right? Like test one of ours out before you spend the money to see if you're going to use it, because that's the best telescope you use. The best telescope you have is the one you use. If you do have a scope already, let us know how it's going. If you're having any issues with it, focusing, collimation, things just don't seem right. You're not seeing what you would expect to be seeing. You can contact us. We might be like, yeah, that's the limitations of the scope, or maybe you got jostled, right? Or maybe there's smuts on the eyepiece or something like that. So if there's anything we can help with, let us know. We also have star parties, at least once a month. And, if you have a scope, we'd love to see you out there observing with us, interacting with the public, showing them the awesomeness of our night sky. So that's one of the things that we have with our club. Back to our website, we have ways that you can socialize with us. We have a discussion forum. We also have our social medias down here. Facebook is where we're probably most active at right now. This was a screenshot from last month before we hit 2.8K on the followers. Again, thank you, Don. I did take this screenshot today of the Astronomy on Tap event happening less than 2 weeks from now. I think that is on September 30th. If you like astronomy, if you like adult beverages, it's a pretty cool event. We've poached a few speakers off of their lists every now and then. And it's usually, they're really good quality speakers. And so you can find these posts on our Facebook page. Our Instagram page, you can find a lot of cool things on here. A lot of people share images on Google Groups, which there's a good chance if you do share it on Google Groups, it'll end up on our Instagram feed or on Facebook. If you want to be on our Instagram page, definitely let us know. And if we do post your picture, let us know your Instagram handle so we can send people your way and say, hey, look at this cool image by Astro Tom or something like that, whatever your Instagram handle is, so we can give you credit. If you would like to, get on our page, you can email it to us at info@bsasnashville.com or just post it to our Google groups. We'll talk more about that in a second. I like this up here on the Instagram. We have star parties coming up. You can see September 19th, which is that 2 days from now? Friday? Yeah, 2 days from now.
Yeah.
At Cedars, Lebanon, you have Montgomery Bell here on the 24th of October. International Observe the Moon Day, which we'll talk about in a little bit. It's coming up at the beginning of October. Bowie, September 27th. So you can get a good idea of things going on. Yeah. So there's a lot of star party opportunities. So catching up on the Instagram, you get pretty pictures plus some updates on upcoming events. For our Google Groups, if you click on that discussion board on our discussion board link on our website, it'll take you to Google Groups. If you're a member of our Google Groups, you'll have access to this. If you click on it and you're a member and you don't have access to this, send us an email here, info@bsasnashville.com, or email me, and we can get you your official email added to our Google group so you can get access to this. This is the way that our members are communicating with each other most frequently, posting things about pop-up star parties. Hey, check out this image. Does anybody have ideas on this? Any good ideas for a telescope for my kid? Things like that. On here is also the equipment list link, just kind of hot linked up here. But there's also the Natchez Trace permit. So whenever we have our private star parties, we hold them out on the Natchez Trace Parkway. We get access to a couple sites out there all night. So we can set up before the sun goes down and be out there till the sun comes up, and we won't get rousted by the officials. So if you do go out to the Natchez Trace Parkway and you want to do observing, make sure you have a copy of this permit. So either a print copy, or they said you can put it on your phone. So you don't have to waste paper, but they recommend that everybody that's out there have a copy of it somewhere on you or available to you. On here, we also have a lot of pop-up star parties. As Randy mentioned, we have Cedars, Lebanon, and Henry Horton. We're doing something out there every month. There's also pop-up parties run by Steve here, trying different events in different places and things like that. And so there's a lot of opportunities to go out and observe with members. And then again, a lot of people post some nice, pretty pictures here. Here's one by Brad of the Pelican Nebula. 60 hours on this. It's pretty intense, but I mean, the 60 hours worth.
Well, it wasn't 59.
Yeah, I know that 59 probably you wouldn't be able to see anything, right? But yeah, 61 would have been too much. Probably would have blown out the sensors. But 60, yeah. It's amazing that we joke about it's probably AI, but
But that's the best one problem.
yeah, it is, right? You can't tell if it's fake because it's so good, right? That's kind of what the coolness is. And then Chris posted this, the Heart and Soul Nebulas. These are a couple of my favorites, the Heart Nebula here, Soul Nebula here, because they are so bright red and whenever you image them and stuff like that. And it does really well in a wide field, which my dwarf has. So I love imaging these. And so it's always fun seeing these pop up in the feeds. And so we have a lot of talented photographers in the group, and so they're always posting things. So again, if you like pretty pictures, check out our Google groups, especially if you're not on it. If you like even more pretty pictures, there's a website called Astrobin, which is kind of like a repository for people that like to do astrophotography, and we'll post things on there, different images and things like that. Only a couple have been added since last month, but we've had a lot of clouds and things like that. Or maybe people found no clouds and they've been imaging and not processing, things like that. But there's a lot of really good eye candy on here. If you're interested in uh, um, joining our Astrobin group, email us here. Keith is currently kind of in charge of running it right now, but it's always fun to see what other people are doing and what equipment they use and how many hours they imaged with, because all that information shows up on these pictures. So a lot of good stuff. All right, back here. We are affiliated with Astronomical League as well as the Night Sky Network. Theo has a link over here for the International Dark Sky Association, which is very near and dear to her heart. She also just got a article out about dark skies, so I saw that post that came through the Google group mentioning that. Theo was interviewed for quite a few things on it. At Night Sky Network, if you click on that link, it'll take you to this splash page. I had to log out to get to this because if you log in, it takes you to a different page. But notice up here, it says Join Club. And so if you click on that and you're not a member, it'll take you to a page that'll have you go back. It'll have you sign up for an account and we'll get a notification that somebody wants to join. And so we'll make sure the handshake happens. Yes, you paid. Yes, you're on. And then we'll add you to the rolls. If you did join the club and did pay and aren't on the rosters, give us a couple days. If it's been a week since you did that, send us an email and we'll make sure that you're officially in the club. Over here on the right, for the BSAS sponsored events, they do show up here. Notice there's no private star parties or pop-up star parties listed here because those are, more for like events for the group to kind of enjoy. Now, some of the events will make public, right? For like the stuff out at the Harpeth, man, can't think of the name of it. The Hidden Lake, is that what it is? What's the one at is it Hidden Lake?
Trail.
Yeah, or at the state parks. Those will be posted up on Google Groups. The Night Sky Network also has a lot of.
Those get posted where?
What do you mean?
Like Henry Horton and
They'll show up on Instagram and Facebook and things like that.
They won't be on that list.
We're working on it. We're trying to figure out the best way to go about that.
It looks like some state parks get listed, but not Cedars and Henry Ward. Curious as to why that is.
The
official BSAS star parties get this.
But the way, Tom, you described it to me last spring was Chuck works with Montgomery Bell the same way I work with these two parks, and it's a state park event. Why are we concerned about which parts get publicized versus which don't?
It's probably a good discussion to have offline. It's more of guaranteeing telescopes, right? Because Chuck runs his own events, and so he guarantees he'll be there. I know that there's times where we need to make sure that we have scopes. So when we post it up there,
Sounds a lot like what I'm doing.
okay. Well, we can talk about it, offline if we want to change how that goes. So the Night Sky Network also has a lot of interesting articles. This article pops up every year during the International Observe the Moon weekend, Weird Ways to Observe the Moon. And I'm a sucker because I like looking at the sky in different ways. They did have a series on the summer triangles, the three stars there. When I click on the Observe the Moon thing, they recommend you can look at it through polarized sunglasses, because polarized sunglasses block a lot of reflecting light. And so that will dim the moon for you. There's a recommendation somebody put out to make a bottle cap lunar viewer. So you take a plastic bottle cap and drill a quarter or 16th inch hole in it, and it makes it about 90% dimmer. So you're just dimming the amount of light that gets into your eyeball. And then here, people are using sun funnels to image the moon because the thing is so bright. And in the article they just updated, people are making 3D printed possibilities for these sun funnels. And so you can get the STI files or STL files, whatever STL files for that. So you can print it off and make your own sun funnel here, so you don't have to roast your eyeballs if you're looking at it. So a lot of really cool things that you can find on the Night Sky Network. There's also a lot of information on what's going on in the month of the sky. This was last month's Night Sky Notes. They were talking about they were talking about the core of the galaxy coming through. It's really good to see during the summer. It's going to start disappearing here shortly. They also have a lot of resources for outreach and night skies and things like that. If you click on these, they'll take you to interesting things happening. So since we're close to the 19th, we have these, right? So Moon meets Venus on September 19th, looking through binoculars. So it's kind of right on cue with our talk tonight. The Moon and Venus and Regulus are going to be relatively close. Here's where we're at on the mornings, right? The 18th we're here, the 19th we're here. So we're somewhere in here-ish. And so it always gives you good ideas of things to look at, maybe cool conjunctions and things like that. They always have the current sun and moon. This was taken a little bit before I came here today, so this is where we're at about today. There's all these links over here to the right, the clear sky chart, sky map, and spot the station. I really like using the sky maps. I had these printed out, and they're sitting on my printer right now. But they're really good because it shows you what's up in the sky, and I really like these because it tells you events going on. And when you flip it over to the back, it has things seen with the naked eye, binoculars, and telescopes. So it gives you targets to go for, and it changes monthly. So they update this once a month. There are other sky maps and stuff out there, and they all have really good information. But the Night Sky, puts this out there for free. The spot the station link, it used to take you to a link where you could plug in your address and it would tell you when things are going over. Now it does this 16 orbits a day. It tells you the inclination. A lot of cool information still. But what they do now is they send you to a website here or to an app store in order to download this app called Spot the Station. You can still get this from the website. This was literally right before I left today to get here. Or you can download the app, which is the Spot the Station app. This is the Apple version. This is the Google Play version. So I'll leave that up there if anybody wants to snap it with their phone. But they both do a really good job. I think they're essentially the same app. They have a lot of information on there. This was earlier, a little after 6 today. It tells you where the ISS is, the route it's on. And then if you click on this next sighting thing, it comes up and tells me the next sites that would be good for mine. I have a max height greater than 30 degrees because I have huge trees in my backyard and I can't see anything close to the horizon. The duration you can set to like greater than 3 minutes. So those are going to be the ones that really go across and are up for a while. And I haven't really messed with the cloud cover thing, so I don't know how well it integrates with the weather. But this is changing monthly, because when I replaced the screenshot from last month, I could definitely tell that they're updating the app. So it's nice to see that work is going into development, and hopefully this one sticks around for a while. Also, with these little blue dots, I can get notifications on my phone. So it'll say the ISS is, coming, in your area in 15 minutes, and it gives you a 15-minute window to get your stuff together and put the kids to bed and run outside. So it's pretty cool that they're putting that in the app. I was recommending people go to Heavens Above if you like computer and screens and planning things out. When I clicked on the Heavens Above link this time around, it went to an out of order page. And so I couldn't get the most updated thing. So I don't know if it's still offline, but it shot me to, is it offline? Yeah, it's still offline. I don't know what's going on with it, but I've left that in here because I felt like that's important information to know if you like IS or the Heavens Above. What I did also find, though, is this is new down here with the app, the share the sightings list. So whatever you pull up here, right, the 27th or 29th, or if you set this to, 10 degrees, right, it'll create more. You can hit share the site and you can email it to yourself or text it to yourself or whatever you want to do, and it'll give you all of this information. Because I did that as well right before I came here to see what it did, because I push buttons. So you can still get it somehow. Kind of jumping off where our talk was today, I knew we were talking binoculars, and I went to the Astronomical League website and just searched for binocular, and actually put it into a search engine of choice and typed in Astronomical League binoculars, and it came up with a couple things, and this was the top hit, the Binocular Messier Observing Program, and you go through and target the Messier objects with your binoculars. And, he mentioned it a couple times that, he was able to do it with not horribly powerful scope or horribly powerful binoculars. So some things you can do. This is what you'd need to do: name of object, date and time, log it in, what you're seeing was like, and stuff like that. Any 50 of the 110, all right, and get it charted and signed off on. And then you send that in, potentially get a pin, and they send you a certificate too, Theo? Yeah, certificate and pin. So if you're a sucker for swag, it's a good way to go. This one, Deep Sky Binocular Observing Program, takes it a little step further. So the list on this, so I had these printed out too. They're sitting on my copier. This list, I think, is 65 more objects. Sorry, I'll pull that back if you wanted to screenshot that or take a picture of that. It's 65 more objects than what's typically seen in the Messier. And so it's supposed to be a little bit more challenging. This is the deep sky list, and so they give you coordinates and stuff like that. I imagine that after going through the Messier and going through this, you're probably going to be pretty good with the sky and a good with the set of binoculars. And so it's, a good thing for targets, planning your observations and stuff like that. Again, searching Astronomical League and binoculars, you also have a double star observing program and a variable star observing program. And so there's a lot of opportunities to go out and just put a pair of binoculars out there. Binoculars are nice because you don't have to put them up or take them down when clouds show up, right? If you got a little sucker hole, you can still look through it, whereas telescopes are a little bit more brutal. So a lot of advantages to using binoculars in your everyday observing habits. All right. So past events and outreach. On August 23rd, we had a public star party at Montgomery Bell. 3 scopes there, 75 guests. The 23rd, we had a private star party published, scheduled. I was out of town for that one. The 30th, there was a public star party out at Bell's Bend. There were 8 scopes, about 20 to 30 guests. So it's good getting out there with the public. Upcoming events on the left, we've got private star party coming up at Saturday, this Saturday on the 20th. This is one of our dark sky sites, 435.3 off the Natchez Trace. If you do go to that, be sure to have a permit out there. On the 27th, there's a public star party out at Bowie Nature Park. On October 3rd, there's another one at Montgomery Bell.
That one's changed to October 24th.
24th, yeah. I just remembered seeing that in the Google Notes. So that one changed to the 24th. And then October 4th at Shelby Bottoms there's an International Observe the Moon night from 7 to 9. So there's a lot of opportunity to get out under the stars. Things posted on the Google groups. The Cedars Lebanon, as Randy mentioned, September 19th, September 20th is Henry Horton at 7 p.m. Randy's here if you wanted to catch him on Google groups. There's a post he'll post up there, and you can get that information there. Steve's running one out at the Hidden Lake Trailhead on the 20th, which is Saturday. So if you're interested in going there, Steve's here in the back, or you can catch him on the Google groups.
Just real quick on the 20th, like we're also going to be doing some solar.
Okay.
If anyone's interested.
Gotcha.
I'll have Nancy, she sent 100 out there. People are interested.
Yeah.
If they want to come out there now.
Any idea when the solar would start?
5:30.
All right, so 5:30 for solar out there.
You want updates on the past event?
What's that?
You want an update on the past event?
Sure.
I'll
August 24th. we had a public star party at Henry Horton.
Yep.
We had 6 scopes and somewhere in the ballpark of 40-45 guests.
Awesome.
Didn't have any problem getting scopes there.
Cool. All right.
Also, I don't see Picket up there. I saw the big thing in the group that people were going to picket this
Are they?
weekend.
I didn't know if that made or not.
Yeah.
Are people going?
Yeah, there's
Perfect.
about a dozen people going. Between Theo and I, we've been keeping Michael Hodge on his toes, but we started out originally with Scott
I'll go in.
and
Yeah.
maybe 1 or 2 other people, and heck, I've got an email right now from somebody who's just now saying she's gonna go.
Cool.
So they're up around a dozen people who are gonna be going. The weather forecast looks good.
Yeah. It's a beautiful park. Getting people out there is gonna help it
It's
stick
dark.
around.
It's dark enough.
Yeah.
I can see some.
got trade up there is that, a couple of us will show up at the public star party on Friday night that Mike was trying to do. And then he'll open the group camp.
Very cool.
I think right now this year they've closed the campground for renovation, which is probably a good thing because my favorite campsite had been out of electricity for a long time. But, so hopefully that gets redone and it's real pretty and it's done. And so hopefully we'll have a few people from the cabins and such like, and maybe some folks from town. Be really nice if the sun would give us a big kick in the pants like tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Dry some things out.
Never seen as many people at the Strong Field up there as I saw the night you were. I mean, the place was packed. People were parked up and down the 2-lane road. It was nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully it's a good weekend for you guys. When is that?
That's
Friday, Saturday. Good deal. All right. So as I mentioned at the beginning, our October member meeting is going to be Dr. Larson. He's now at Clarkson University. He was up in Chicago. He moved to the Northeast. He's a gravitational wave astrophysicist, but he's also pretty big in the social media world. He does have a blog that he puts up maybe every other month or every couple months. He puts up a pretty cool blog. He goes by the tag Science Jedi. And so this is his Blue Sky on his social page. And he also has his link to his WordPress page on there. So he's our plan for the October member meeting. Once I get word on what we're doing, I'll notify everybody out here. And then we can go from there. All right. I think that's all I got. Any questions or unfinished business or anything that we need to address?
Just put it back in your mind, somebody, some lovely person wants to be treasurer next year.
We are starting to think about elections for board members and things like that coming up. We hold elections in December. If anybody is interested in being on the board or taking a position, a main position like treasurer, things like that, definitely reach out to us and let us know. All right.
I did have a question.
Yeah.
What drove the change in the Montgomery Bell Star Party in October to move it from the 3rd to the 24th?
Did you catch that, Chuck?
Yeah. I am doing the Huntsville's U.S. Space and Rocket Center's International Observe the Moon Night, and they changed from the 3rd to the 4th. No, from the 4th to the 3rd. Due to some, I don't know what their reasoning was. So that meant I couldn't do the October 3rd. Couldn't get that wrong. Yeah, I couldn't do the October 3rd date. And then when I talked to the park ranger out at Montgomery Bell, the 24th was their next best choice.
Gotcha. Maybe they couldn't get the moon scheduled. Who knows? All right. Anything else?
We're gonna have the big scope open upstairs, if anyone wants to come check it out.
Awesome.
We're not sure if Saturn's gonna be over the trees. If it's over the trees, we'll have Saturn. If it's not, we'll probably have Ring Nebula up there.
Gotcha.
And then,
Boring old ring nebula. Always a sight to see. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and finish it off. If anybody has any questions, feel free to catch me up here. If not, hopefully catch you at a star party sometime coming up in the next future, and I'll probably see you guys sometime in October if I don't see you any sooner. All right, have a great day, guys.
Thank y'all.
Yep.
Good meeting.
You're.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
You're here,
Yeah.